Tonight, tempest flare in Parliament as majority and minority MPs go at each other over government response to the devastating Volta floods.
Thank you for admitting
you are
that.
Being satanic.
Thank you for
what you are doing.
Thank you for admitting.
I have personally not received any.
I won't take this lightly. For Blackburn to label me as satanic.
He knows what he's doing.
We're here from the Energy Minister who has been briefing the House today.
Successful evacuation of close to 39,000 persons with no single injury or death reported. The coordinated efforts also led to the preservation of the Akosombo Dam.
The minority side is already describing the minister's statement as riddled with falsehood.
We have had enough. We are down. We are traumatized. We have lost everything. The last thing we will countenance are blatant falsehoods. We will not accept it. Another falsehood.
This is Top Story with Evans Mensah.
And Top Story is always brought to you by Vodafone.
I have not received.
I will not take this lightly.
I have not received any relief.
It won't happen in this debate. Get him to return. Nobody should.
And tempest flared in Parliament today as NTC and NPP MPs fought each other over government's response to the devastating floods that swept several communities along the Volta River following the spillage of the Akosombo Dam. The Energy Minister, Martin Prempeh, today led senior management of the Volta River Authority to brief MPs. He rejected claims the VRA mismanaged the spillage.
Successful evacuation of close to 39,000 persons with no single injury or death reported. The coordinated efforts also led to the preservation of the Akosombo Dam, the Sogakope Bridge, and the lives of many Ghanaians living south of the Akosombo Dam. We want to reassure them of our commitment. We are in this together, and we will exhaust all the resources necessary to ensure that all of them are comfortably restored to their normal lives. VRA controlled spillage of excess water from Akosombo and pond dams between 15th September and 30th October was a necessary safety measure to prevent a highly possible dam break disaster. Spillage, Mr. Speaker, was the only option, and based on the available information and data, the spill levels were what was required to ensure the safety of the dam and prevent a greater impact not only on the communities downstream, but on the entire country. Pledge that together we shall overcome these challenges and emerge as a stronger nation.
Well, the minority side will not accept the minister's explanation. Minority spokesperson on Mines and Energy, John Junapo, described the conduct of the VRA as irresponsible.
Today, the minister is in Parliament briefing MPs on the aftermath of the spillage. The first question you ask is that couldn't you have engaged these MPs before the spillage? This is serious. This is cardinal. At least when the MPs move to their communities and they speak to their people, some of them will listen. That should be a simple issue. And then you went there and did a simulation. I never heard of any simulation in my area. I never heard of any simulation. And I never witnessed any simulation. In any case, when you knew you were going to spill the dam, did you create safe havens for them? Which towns were those safe havens created? Because what you do is that once you are going to spill a dam, you create a safe haven so that when people are affected, they can move to those areas. MPs have had to allocate schools for people to go and stay there. Mr. Speaker, this is a serious issue. But even more important is the issue of this perennial flooding. On the 19th of November, 2019, President Akufo-Addo cut the sword for the construction of the Pualugu Dam, valued at about $1 billion. We were told that that would be the main solution on the White Volta in terms of flooding. Mr. Speaker, when he cut the sword, he promised that in about 4 years, that project will be completed. At the end of this year, the 4 years will be due. I have been there, Mr. Speaker. No activity is taking place.
Well, positions today were entrenched. The majority were determined to register their disagreement with their minority colleagues. Listen to MP for Tema West, Carlos Ahinkra.
If VRA hadn't taken the decision they took to get us where we are now, and that dam broke, Mr. Speaker, from Akosobo to Tema was going to be submerged underwater. Mr. Speaker, even beyond that, Mr. Speaker, I will repeat that my colleagues or my fathers and mothers and sisters in the areas affected have taken a very big sacrifice. In fact, an involuntary sacrifice, a sacrifice they did not wish to, as it were, enter into. But they have saved some of us living downstream or living, below the riverbed. The Speaker, we have blindly overlooked what VRA has actually gone through. I don't think the chief executive and his management even do sleep, because they started this exercise by going to educate people who live in these areas. When they realized that the water level was going up, they didn't start this exercise yesterday, Mr. Speaker. This exercise started way back, warning people, telling them what will happen, and so on and so forth. The Speaker, they also started the spillage small, little by little. They started releasing this water in such a way that it wasn't supposed to have, caused this havoc or this mayhem that we are seeing today. But unfortunately, they don't control the rains. They do not have the opportunity to determine how much rains fall into the basin at any particular time.
And I want to take it to Parliament now. I want to bring in Kweku Asante, my parliamentary correspondent. Kweku, Samuel Kuyota Blakwa, we know his constituency was one of the, in fact, was the worst hit constituency, may to be very specific. He was emphatic that parts of the minister's address to the House today was simply untrue.
Yes, Evans, according to Samuel Kuyota Blakwa, his focal point in taking on the minister's response was that the government had claimed that they had distributed relief items to MPs like himself. He said that was completely not true. He also said that the so-called safe havens that VRA claimed to have constructed for victims of this flood was not safe or was not heavy either. And he was not enthused at all with the response the minister had come to tell MPs about.
I was never invited to any meeting. I challenged the minister to provide one name, one member of parliament who was consulted, who attended any meeting regarding this village. In the affected areas, my colleagues are here. Not a single member of parliament, not one. Look, we have had enough. We are down. We are traumatized. We have lost everything. The last thing we will countenance are blatant falsehoods. We will not accept it. Another falsehood is that VRA is sharing relief items and that members of parliament have received their share. When? Which member of parliament has received shares of relief items? And such a dangerous statement for our constituents to now come after us. As I speak, as member of parliament for Northton, the most affected constituency, no VRA official has given me relief items. Not a grain of rice, not a bottle of oil. I am also totally appalled that in this entire statement, there has been no mention of resettlement. How long are my people going to live in schools? Look, the inhumanity, the indignity, Mr. Speaker, pardon me, the indignity that people are suffering, are going through. 85-year-olds, 95-year-olds, we all have mothers, grandmothers. Those of us here, will we accept to live in a classroom even for 2 hours, for 3 hours? Why is it taking government so long to announce a resettlement policy for those affected whose houses have been destroyed to be resettled? There has been no mention of compensation. Mr. Speaker, imagine losing everything you have.
Honourable Member,
your shop, your livestock, everything you have worked for. How long are my people going to live in classrooms? And as long as these so-called safe havens, nothing safe, no haven about them, it means
your time is...
education is affected. Their children can't have their schools back. So, Mr. Speaker, we are talking about a catastrophe, a humanitarian crisis.
Kweku, how did the majority side respond to this?
Well, we heard from the MP for Empire, so David and so Poku, who took on directly the claims that have been made by Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa. He was not happy that Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa would claim that government, through the VR and the Energy Ministry, had not moved in to distribute relief items to affected victims.
My colleagues on the other side are creating the impression that this government has been irresponsive to the issues that are happening in South that are happening along the Volta. Let's figure. Clearly, they admit that government agencies, government officials, quasi-government persons.
I don't get it. Office.
Is it about you or is it about your people?
I was not there.
Is it about you or your people?
And nothing has been given to me.
You in your constituency, you are receiving.
Nothing has been given to me.
In your constituency,
you know what you are doing.
And you are denying it.
You are being mischievous.
Thank you for admitting
you are
that.
being satanic.
Thank you for.
You know what you are doing.
Thank you for admitting.
I have personally not received any.
I won't take this lightly. For Blackman to label me as satanic.
He knows what he's doing.
But you describe me as satanic.
I have not received.
Mr. Speaker, I will not take this lightly. He cannot describe me as satanic.
Any relief item.
It won't happen in this debate. Get him to return. Nobody should describe me as crazy. He cannot describe me as satanic. He is a double devilish person if he wants to describe me as satanic. And Mr. Speaker, until he withdraws that statement, I am an honorable member of this house. I represent my people. My people are affected. If I take the opportunity to speak, I get the opportunity to speak, and I express myself and you describe me as satanic, then, Mr. Speaker, is an exponential satanic person in this house.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we all know Satan is a king of lies. When you state emphatically that I have received items personally, now you have been exposed. You are now beating around the bush that he went and gave items to constituents. Does that mean a personal donation to me? You have clearly been exposed.
And thankfully, I can bring in right now Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, who joins us on the telephone line right now. Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, thank you for your time here on Top Story. The MP for Empire is also with us on the line right now. He's David Poku, also joins us right now. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time here on Top Story. Mr. Ablakwa, let me start with you. There's a suggestion today that there's actually a Volta River Resettlement Fund. And the VRA has contributed some 2.86 million cedis into this particular fund. Are you aware of this fund?
Good evening, Evans. I know about that fund, which government has abandoned for many years. This has been a standing committee for decades. This government has failed to carry out its obligation in making sure that that fund is always resourced. If that fund was working, a lot of things will have happened in these communities. Alternative livelihoods will have been provided. We will have had even dredging being done, which will have paved a way for more, if you like, safety, because there will be a better flow of the river and all of that. Look, as for the negligence of government, nobody can debate that. Nobody can even attempt to question that. If you look at the catastrophe we are dealing with, it's not a paltry 2.8 million cedis into a fund which has not been disbursed. As I speak to you, my people are still living in classrooms. I mean, just think about it. No fault of yours. You are totally taken by surprise. Government did not even perform the simple duty. Look, let's put things in perspective. Government decided that on this day they will open the floodgates so that Akosombo Dam will be preserved. Nobody questions the need to spill so that the dam is preserved. Nobody questions that. But you take the decision. You agree on a date. You know when you are going to open the floodgates. What do you do? I mean, can't we value human lives? Can't we show people respect? In every decent society, what would have been done is that before the decision was taken and before the floodgates will be opened, people will be relocated to safe places. Alternative housing will be provided. That's what you do. I mean, if this had been some natural disaster, some hurricane, some tsunami taking everybody by surprise, you can live with it. This is taking a decision that you are going to open the floodgates. You know when. You put out the date, and you humanly execute this task, and then you take people by surprise. I mean, it's as though some people set out to commit mass murder. As I speak to you, 12,633 people displaced in my constituency. More than 1,500 houses demolished. 21 schools are being described as safe havens. And as I said today on the floor, it's neither safe, neither is it a haven. You can't describe classrooms, no kitchen, no bedroom, no toilet, and you expect people to be living there for weeks. Well, 5 weeks now.
On the
I
floor,
have senior citizens, 85-year-olds, 95-year-olds, and throughout the minister's statement, not a word about resettlement. How long are my people going to be living in these classrooms?
Talking about resettlement, on the floor today, it was alleged that some members of the NDC, and just quote exactly the way it was put, I believe by OPK, are sitting on this vulnerable resettlement fund. You heard that on the floor.
I heard that. You need to understand how this works. Historically, there are a number of members of parliament who serve on this board. Is you have MPs on both sides serving on that board. Historically, I have never been a member of that board. I know, for example, I think the MP for North Dai serves on that board, and a host of others. But the issue is that for a long time, the fund has not been populated. And if you look at the scale of disaster, releasing 2.8 million cedis is an insult. We are talking about damage that runs into billions of Ghana cedis. Entire houses destroyed, entire communities, their villages. I mean, come to Mefe, go to Siko, go to Glonu, go to Alabonu, go to Volu. I mean, these are communities that are gone.
Yeah, but if you have 2.8 million, but if you have 2.8 million sitting there, at least you can start with that, right? I mean, from what you're saying, that even hasn't been disbursed at all?
It hasn't been disbursed. I'm not aware that anybody has arrived in my constituency with 2.8
But that raises the question also. If there are members of parliament whose constituency you can find along the Volta River on this board, and they haven't said anything about that then indicts them too.
My information is that it was when this disaster occurred that monies were released into that fund. I don't know when disbursements will take place. But look, we were in this country when the Apiati disaster occurred. We saw the level of commitment. We saw the seriousness. We saw how a centralized fund was established. And we saw efforts to resettle the people, reconstruct new houses. I mean, why are we treating portions of this country as though they are not citizens? Why?
Stay with me, Samokdita Blakwa. Davis is with me. He is a member of parliament for Empire. So Davis Opokwansa OPK is how he's popularly known in parliament among his colleagues there. Davis, so you made this disclosure, but you also said that the board is meeting. I believe you said tomorrow, right?
Yes.
But you then allege that some members of the NDC are sitting on the Volta River Resettlement Fund. When you make that pronouncement, what exactly do you mean?
Well, I was stating a fact that some members of parliament, both on both sides, sit on on the board, and my colleague Kujeto Ablakwa has alluded to that fact that the North Dye MP also sits on that board. I mean, I have some MPs from Yilo Krobo and a host of others. But the point I was trying to make was that government, through its agencies, through its agents, are doing their best in trying to solve the problems. The impression should not be created that the government is irresponsive on these matters. I mean, once that is done, then we seem not to appreciate the very little things or the things that government is doing. I mean,
but then you also look at the very specifics, right?
People are displaced. People need to be resettled and all of that. But it is not a one-man thing. I mean, it needs a lot of planning.
But you're looking at the real evidence on the ground in terms of what government had done so far. This 2.86 million you talk of, Samuel Tabaka says it was only released after the flood. If you have a standing fund, why wasn't that fund quickly used to start alleviating the plight of those who were left displaced?
Through their own arrangement, through VRA is mandated to release, I think, $500,000 every year to the fund. I know that last year they did release these funds. Yes, I've been told that the government in times past have released the funds. But you see, granted that it was not being done, and now they are doing it just because there's an issue of flooding in some parts of this country. It shows you how responsive the VRA is to the very needs of our people. Two, it is not just the 2.86 million that I talked about. We know that the VRA has set aside a 20 million Ghana cedis fund to manage this disaster. And my brother appreciates the fact that VRA and the finance minister have visited his constituency and donated some items. The NADMO authorities, we've seen the NADMO Director General travel across the length and breadth of places flooded and distributing items for and on behalf of government.
Well, they've said that the distribution.
The Ministry of Education, through the minister, has visited Honorable Kujetwa Ablakwa's constituency to assess the impact of this flooding on education, and plans are being put in place to as it were, arrest the situation.
But David, where is the resettlement plan? Because yes, you give donations, but people are still living in classrooms.
Already there's a resettlement plan, and that is why there's a bond. There's a fund that manages issues about resettlement. For instance, in my constituency, when you visit areas like Amate, New Jerusalem, and Ketepa, Subone, and all of these places, people were resettled for the construction of the Volta Dam. So in these places, even during the Kwame Nkrumah's era, buildings were put in place for them. So people have been resettled. It is just unfortunate that in these circumstances, VRA had needed to choose between two sides, whether to allow the dam to collapse or to open the floods so that we are able to, enjoy whatever services VRA is giving us. It's rather unfortunate that it has led to all this.
But David, there are people still in classrooms tonight. There are people still in classrooms tonight.
Yes.
There are people still in classrooms tonight. The energy minister came to the floor today and didn't talk about resettlement for them. What's a long-term plan for them now?
Disasters do happen, but your response to these disasters is very key, and I think that government has done enough. The government
has done enough. And of course,
by next week, the Minister for Finance will be in Parliament to read the budget. What, as members of Parliament who have been affected by this flooding, should be doing is to be calling on the government to make room for, let's say, some compensation to be paid to these persons. It is within our rights. It is within our mandate as members of Parliament to now begin to advocate for that. But let us not create the impression that the thing happens yesterday and the next morning you expect new buildings to spring up. And everything ought to be budgeted for.
Yes, but you say the MPs must advocate. Must they really? This is a government responsibility. It should come as a matter of course. There should be a plan currently that the minister should be presented to the House what government intends to do about those still in classrooms.
Next week. So let us not jump the gun. Let us not jump the gun.
You're promising
we understand.
And assuring us that we'll see this in the budget next week.
People are displaced. Hello?
You're saying we'll see this in the budget next week?
I am saying that from where I sit and from what I have heard, there's a plan by the government and it will be announced by the Minister for Finance when he appears before Parliament.
Okay. Someone could you talk about that should give you some comfort?
It doesn't give me comfort.
That is the point. That is the point that I'm raising.
I'm saying
that
turn?
Today, through the Ministry of
Finance. Just briefly.
Please, let me finish. Okay,
just briefly. Just a second. I have 30 seconds to wrap up this.
Through the Ministry of Agri, the Minister of Agri have announced a package, a $40 million package from the World Bank to help restore some of the farms that have been destroyed by this incident. So you realize that in every sphere, when it goes to education, the Minister for Education is responding. When you go to Agri, the Minister for Agri is responding. The Ministry of Energy, who is largely responsible for this, is also doing its bit. The Ministry of Interior, through NADMO, is doing its bit.
Okay, David, thank you very much. Let me hear from Samakujo Tablaka on this. He says you can expect something in the budget.
Evans, can you hear me?
I can.
This is all talk and no action. If those sector ministers were working, we will feel the impact on the ground. Let my honorable colleague be reminded that in the 2023 budget, the budget for this year, we approved a contingency fund of over $600 million. That is what you use contingency for. 600 million cedis, pardon me. 600 million cedis. Where is the contingency fund? What are they doing with that? Because in times of emergency, you don't wait for the next budget cycle. I mean, people are living in classrooms now under insanitary conditions. The Ghana Health Service has warned there's a looming epidemic. Children can't have their classrooms back to resume academic work. Lives have been destroyed. People are collapsing every day in my constituency. This is an emergency. It's a humanitarian crisis. It's a catastrophe. There is a contingency fund, 600 million cedis in there, approved by Parliament. What are they using the money for?
Well, Evans.
Yes, Davis.
Yes. So, but the point I'm raising is that Blackwa saying that all this support that is coming from NADMO, all this support that is coming from VRA, all this support that is coming from the Ministry of Finance, the support that is coming from the Ministry of Education, where is it coming from? Is it not from government? Is it not from the chest of government? I'm surprised that
Evans, he himself, in his statement in Parliament today, he says that NADMO informs him that they have distributed 1,000 bags of maize. I mean, can you believe that? 1,000 bags of maize. A big joke. As I speak, nothing has come from the Ministry of Education in terms of resuming academic work. I have had to organize classes, mobilize volunteer teachers. As I speak to you, we are not seeing reconstruction of alternative housing so that these displaced persons living under inhumane conditions of indignity, which violates their fundamental human rights. These are the issues.
Yeah, but Samuel, he says that you can expect something substantial in the budget that will maybe address this. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Just run out of time on this, but this is an important subject that I want to hear from you about. You've had the Energy Minister today. You've had the two MPs, of course, lay out their cases on what has been done or what hasn't been done. Let me hear from you, 055-1111-997, especially if you live in the areas affected tonight. You want to share your thoughts on the briefing to Parliament by the Energy Minister. Earlier, you had Davis Opoku and Samuel Kujetsa Blakwa. News Night starts right now.